Good morning and welcome to Jill Cameron Creations, Beautiful Cards and Current Techniques. Today we're going to do a rainbow background card with some distress inks. I'm going to be using products from the My Monthly Hero Kit and for March 2018, and we are using some distress inks, and I'm going very quickly through the products and showing them to you, but as I'm using them I'll describe the products and give you the names and all that kind of stuff. So the distress ink colors that I'm using is Festive Berries, Spiced Marmalade, Squeezed Lemonade, Twisted Citron, Salty Ocean, Blueprint Sketch, and Wilted Violet. I'm ink blending these on a piece of 80-pound Nina Solar white cardstock using mini ink blending tools from Ranger. I have store all of my little sponges on the bottoms of my mini ink cubes. They fit perfectly, the little round ones do. But I only have 2 tools, so I have to swap out my sponges all the time. That's not an issue for me. I don't need to have a million ink tools for each of my colors. I just have 2 blending tools and just swap out the ink pads as I'm using them back and forth. When you're doing ink blending, the biggest thing that you want to keep in mind is to start off of your page. That's just so you don't get a big blob of ink in that one place. It kind of gets hard to blend it out. So just start off the side of the page and blend your color across using little circular motions. And you'll also notice that I'm tilting my ink tool just a little bit. I'm kind of tilting it to the left. I'm right-handed, so if you were right-handed, you'll want to tilt it so you're just using the edge of the sponge. That's how I'm getting the thin lines. I'm not worried about them being perfectly straight. I'm not worried about them blending into each other. I actually want them to blend into each other. I want that consistent rainbow look across the entirety of my background. And I'm sorry, you'll hear my cat sneeze a couple of times. She's decided that she's going to play in the dust in the basement, I think, today. So we're going to go ahead and continue ink blending here. And if you've never done ink blending before, just grab a piece of scrap paper and make sure that it's the kind of paper that you're actually going to use for your background. I'm using, like I said, 80-pound Nina Solar white cardstock here. These are regular distress inks, not the Distress Oxide. They don't come in the minis yet. I don't know if they'll ever be offered in the minis, but as of right now, they're not. And ink blending is pressure and consistency across the page. The more ink you apply, the darker your color, the lighter pressure, the lighter the color. You'll notice also that I'm starting on both sides of the paper because I have a tendency to just start on the same side of the paper all the time, which means that one side will always be darker. But here I'm making sure that I remember to do on both sides of the paper so that I have an even, fairly even blend across my paper. And I'm doing thin lines, and yes, I'm going to start all over again with the red in just a minute after the purple here. And you'll notice that it's not perfect. I don't want it to be perfect. I'm making this by hand. I don't need it to be perfect. I need it to be pretty, which is my favorite part of card making. A simple ink blended background. This is sped up about 4 times as fast as what I can actually do it. It took me probably about 10 minutes to make my ink blended background. Not very long at all in the big scheme of things. You'll also notice that I have a sticky note attached to my fingers. That's to keep the oil from my fingers being on the paper. What will happen is as the oils from your fingers get on the paper, it will leave those ridge marks and you'll actually ink blend into the paper your fingerprints. So you want to keep that to a minimum if at all possible. Just use a piece of scrap paper, or like I use the backside of a sticky note. You just stick it to your fingers and it's done. You have a piece of paper to hold onto your background there. Now, as we're almost done here, the last color is going to be that Twisted Citron down at the bottom. And I have a habit of cleaning up as I go so that my work area isn't a huge mess when I'm finished. If I didn't, I would end up with just an area big enough to put a card in. So I need to make sure that I clean up as I go. And my kitty cat is bothering me at the moment. I'm sorry. She's decided she's going to paw at me. little water flicks as distress oxides react with water. Distress inks act with water. They'll leave little water spots all over everything, and you just pick up the too much water, because we are not working on watercolor paper. You don't want to put too much water down. Little shimmer spritz. And now we're going to die cut. The one thing that I did not show on here is that I did use a heat tool to dry my background to make sure that it was completely dry. If you don't, the paper will tear instead of die cut, and you don't want to do that. I'm using a Spellbinders Platinum 6-inch die cutting machine, and set your big die cuts like that off to the side. They'll go through much easier. This die cut did not retain all those little pieces and parts. It's kind of like doing embossing when you pop out all those pieces. It's just really, really, really pretty. So the card base is 110 pound Neenah Solar White, and I'm using a Teflon bone folder, and I haven't had it very long and absolutely love it. It's amazing. It doesn't mark the paper and make it shiny in places, and really, really creases the paper. The hugs sentiment that's going on the front of this card, I used black cardstock, and your favorite brand will be just fine. I die cut this 4 times, and we'll run it through 4 different times. And what we're going to do is stack up this die cut using some liquid adhesive. And Neenah, honey, it's okay. Mama's just talking to the camera in the video. And we're going to stack this up and put this on the front of our card, so we have a thick die cut that really stands out for the word hugs on the front of our rainbow inked background. I made sure to put a piece of white paper down so that you would be able to see it, because my cutting mat is black and I'm using black cardstock. So black on black really doesn't show up. So we want to make sure that y'all can see everything that's going on here. And yes, I am from Virginia, so y'all will get a whole lot of y'alls in there. And I use Zig 2-way glue stick. It goes on one of 2 ways. If you let it completely dry and then adhere something, it's temporary. But if you put it on while it's still wet, then it becomes permanent. I like the chisel tip because it gives me more control when I have these intricate die cuts over where how much adhesive goes down. It dries matte, so you don't see it, and I don't have to worry about it oozing out everywhere because it's just on the surface of the paper. Start by, when you're adhering those teeny tiny die cuts like that, use 1 letter in it as a starting point and adhere that place together perfectly, and then do the rest of it, and it's a whole lot easier that way. I'm aligning the stamp sentiment that's going to go along with the hugs. Use some anti-static powder tool on my black paper, and using Versamark ink to stamp that down. We're going to use some white embossing powder. Use your favorite brand. It really doesn't matter what white embossing powder you use, as long as it's your favorite brand. You've used it before, you like it, go with what you like. You don't have to have super expensive embossing powders. Some, for teeny tiny itty bitty little sentiments, you might want to have a fine detail white embossing powder, just because it is the actual embossing powder itself is a finer grain, and it will work better for your finer sentiments that you may have. Tape down the banner over that sentiment, and we're going to run that through the die cut machine. And now we're going to put everything together. Quick and easy. I always like to put everything down on my card and kind of stack it together, see how I want everything to go. You see the washi tape still on the back of my card. I'm not pulling that off. It's just there. It's fine. It's not going to hurt anything. And for the big major, I want it to stick forever and ever, and it's not delicate. I use, this is the Tonic Nouveau Deluxe adhesive. I do like it. Comes in a great big bottle, and it's inexpensive. I usually put the liquid adhesive around the edge of a die cut background like this to make sure the edge sticks really well. And then I just do strategic points on the inside of it. I don't glue down the whole entire thing. So that's adhered down really well. And then we're going to put some dots and lines of glue on the back of our Hugs die cut. And then we are going to put that on the front of our card. I have a great big huge acrylic block that I've had for years and years and years, and I'll usually use that to apply even pressure to a die cut and stick it down. The good thing about this glue is that it adheres and dries pretty quickly, so you don't have to worry about it being wet for a long period of time. These are Doris, the little strips of adhesive of foam tape, and I put 4 of those on the back of that and pop that into place, and the card's all done. I thank you so much for joining me today. And if you have any questions or comments or want to know anything, let me know. Thanks. Have a great day.